Amidst unrest by the Gen Z who took to the streets, their demands and their concerns regarding the rampant corruption in this country, many of them found themselves behind bars, some of whom have now been granted bail as of today. But the issue around corruption and the talk around the same continues. And the comments are by the Chief of Defense Forces of the country, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, telling the Patriotic League of Uganda youth that they are not allowed to participate in any demonstrations with regards to corruption. So this then begs the question of where does this leave the Constitution and in particular Article 29 vis-a-vis those comments? You know, is there an attempt to undermine the rule of law? We shall delve deep into that conversation. But also we know that a group of largely youthful activists of the Forum for Democratic Change were arrested in Kisumu about a fortnight ago, and they were arraigned and now remanded to Luzira. So the question of, you know, the extradition laws and things like that, we shall just have brief comments towards the end of the show to that effect. Viewers, welcome to this episode of the Youth Roundtable. I'm joined by a panel of distinguished young people that I now introduce to you, and in no particular order. From the extreme left, which is your right, is a gentleman who is dubbed proudly in the colors of his political party, and that is the Revolutionary National Resistance Movement. Roy Rugumayo is the name. Lugu, we are pleased to have you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Kidega. I'm very pleased to be here yet again. Thank you for always giving me this opportunity. Thank you, our viewers, for always finding time to come and follow these conversations, leaving your views in the comments, and always being up to date with what is happening in the country from the perspective of the youth, especially when this show is your one-stop center for that information.
Wow, interesting. I must say you're very smart. I like that.
Thank you so much.
Well, next to Roy is the only lady on the show. Danita Turiho is the name. She is a student of law at Uganda Christian University, but also, for those of you who have been following the protests and the activism work around the same, is that at least you've seen her, you know, speak strongly, either against or for some parties. Danita, we are pleased to have you.
Thank you so much, Kidega. It's lovely to be here as usual, and it's great to have the opportunity to express those very strong views you speak of.
Yeah. How do you feel being sandwiched by this gentleman?
Very excited. The conversation seems very promising, extremely promising.
Interesting. Next to myself is someone who I would say had abandoned the Youth Roundtable, but we have brought him back and hope he's back with a bang. The name is Kato Laban. Laban is an accountant by profession and a member of the Alliance for National Transformation Youth League, but also a member of the National Youth Council in Kampala. Dugu, it's a pleasure.
It's a great pleasure to be here. I do not abandon. It's because of your economy. Keep us looking for more.
I can imagine.
But, I'm excited and it's a great pleasure to be here once again.
Wow, interesting. Ndugu, let's just begin with you, Rugumayo. I mean, the contradiction between what the law tells us that you have a right to protest and to demonstrate for as long as you're doing it in a manner that is within the law. Vis-a-vis the statements of the PLU, I don't know if it's the PLU leader or is the Chief of Defense Forces, but yes, those statements, where is the contradiction?
Well, there is, of course, a very huge contradiction, especially from a political perspective, with a movement that built itself on the narrative that it is the only legitimate organization that can fight corruption, that could stamp out the cancer that corruption is in our country. Because for a very long time, the PLU has branded itself and its leader as that bedrock of the anti-corruption crusade. So the statements come as a shock to many members of the PLU, the youth, but also to the general public, Now, regarding how this conversation fits into the general conversation on rights, especially the Article 29, on the chilling effects of the statements on people's freedoms to assemble and show dissatisfaction in circumstances as this, not only on corruption but also on other issues. These statements are also being made not only by the leader of PLU, but also by the commander of the defense forces. So it also matters that that is also contextualized, even when he's communicating to only members of the movement he is leading. Though now, rights aside, there is also a constitutional duty on every citizen in the fight against corruption, because the Constitution not only grants the rights of people to assemble and show dissatisfaction, but it bestows a duty on every citizen, especially in the fight against corruption. So what the CDF is telling citizens is that as long as you subscribe to my movement, you must abdicate
Your duty.
that duty. And that can have a very huge chilling effect, especially when the commander-in-chief has been calling upon all, to be patriots and join him in the fight against corruption, especially the young people who are victims of the corruption. So the statements have very adverse effects and must be challenged by all of good standing, especially by the youths in PLU itself, because I've not seen so much pushback from the members of the PLU in light of these statements. So what are they particularly trying to show? Is it a movement where the word of the movement leader is the law, or does it replace the law, or does it replace the duty of the citizen? Does it replace the consciousness of the people against corruption itself? Because generally corruption doesn't affect only the youths in PLU or the youths in NRM, because it affects service delivery for everyone. So when he chooses to tell PLU youths not to participate in the fight against corruption, is he in other words telling them to accept the dangers that corruption comes with? What alternatives does he present for them in case they want to participate in the general conversation against corruption, against mismanagement of national resources, against the poor service delivery, against the poor roads and etc., which he has been particularly a vocal contributor in that conversation. Okay? Were they political statements? Was he serious about corruption and mismanagement? Or is this his new position now? That in the fight against corruption, his way is the highway.
Maybe his disagreement is on the approach, that he doesn't believe that we should take to the streets, that maybe there are other ways of addressing corruption.
No, those ways would have been presented in that same statement. That the youths of PLU, I am not an advocate of this approach of going to the streets, but you could do this, okay? Or in light of corruption, we do not, as PLU, we do not agree with going to the streets, but this is what we are going to do, or this is what we are doing. Take, for instance, the PLU has not been particularly a white horse in these corruption scandals, especially in these last few days. Where is the head of mobilization for the PLU as we speak now?
Zinluzira.
Zinluzira over what?
Corruption
So
and mismanagement.
So the whole idea is that he comes to a conversation, but you are not with clean hands.
Okay, but who comes with clean
And
hands? Like in corruption in Uganda, any politician, any political guys, the president himself.
Even civil society, it's
There is no one
it
with
is not
clean
exclusive
hands.
to only politicians.
What we are
So-
saying is
Yeah.
that
Even the private sector.
he shows goodwill by actually coming to this conversation of the anti-corruption crusade. But also, when he comes with a message that could have a chilling effect on the current agitation that is widespread, then it waters down even his position earlier.
All right,
So
fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you, Roy. I had to bring in Danita. Danita, these are statements not being made by just any army officer. They are being made by the Chief of Defense Forces, the top most ranking serving military officer. Then we all know the way we saw military police handling the protesters. So is there a correlation between the way we saw the military handle the protesters vis-a-vis the statements of the commander of those people that we saw on the streets?
I mean, I think the connection is quite apparent, but before that, Roy mentions a very interesting thing, that it was shocking for the members of the PLU and for the general public to hear the Chief of Defense Forces say such things. I think because I'm not a politician, I can be quite frank about these things. We know the way this nation is run. We know exactly what is happening. It is no surprise that you would hear the Chief of Defense Forces, who as an active army member is parading around in political campaigns, engage in such discourse. There's so much wrong that is happening in this nation that I don't think we should start covering it up under statements like it was shocking, we were moved. We were not moved, we expected it. We were actually surprised it took this long to come out. But when we say that the military in the army right now, I mean the military in the country right now, is just a force for someone's good. It is the force for the benefit of a few individuals. So when, I think we saw it in Kenya, when the president says, okay, the army is going to take to the streets and curb these protesters, and the army says, and the court says, no, it's not gonna happen, and it doesn't happen. Now in Uganda, few people saying, guys, I'm gonna go to the streets. It can be one person on the internet. The entire military, you won't walk through town without seeing military police at every other corner. This is an indicator of the fact that there is no army in this country that is for the people. It is just an attachment for the good of a certain group of individuals. So when we see the Chief of Defense Forces make this statement so casually, so callously, we are not surprised, because we know that he's first of all, he's guaranteed that nothing is going to happen to him. We know that it's guaranteed that if he sneezes and he needs a tissue, the entire army itself, if he so desires, will come. Each of them will come and place something at his feet, because that is the state of affairs in the nation. So when we see this guy come out and make these statements, it is no surprise at all. When we see the army take to the streets in regards to these protests, to just not even, guys, people were just holding out placards. I don't think we can even call it. We've had people come and say it's a violent protest because it helps a certain narrative in this nation. But the only violence we saw was the way these people were being held by the military police, by the police. There was no violence on their end. Everyone in this protest was peaceful, legitimately peaceful. So when you ask me, do I see any correlation between the statements of the Chief of Defense Forces and the way the army handles this affair, the fact that they were actually there, I say that I only see a correlation. Because what we have right now is a force that is in service to this man, to his father, to his family, and maybe to a few individuals that find themselves lucky enough to be in their good graces. The rest of us, someone told me we're in these people's nation. We should be grateful that, you know, we have residents here. This is someone's home.
Okay, but just how fair are you being to those men and women in uniform who from time and again find themselves going to Somalia, going to Congo to fight ADF? Should we zero down their participation to just serving the interests of that group of people? Yet we have seen from time and again they have defended our borders against ADF, against I don't know, Boko Haram, LRA. So
We give them
aren't you being
a bit harsh.
A bit harsh to them?
I think one doesn't negate the other. So they have gone out, they've gone to Congo, they've gone to Somalia. We bless them for that. I bless the sacrifice of these good men and women. The good men, and some of them have sacrificed their life, some of them have been disabled, but that doesn't negate the fact that that doesn't negate the fact that what they're doing now within our borders is more horrendous. We're actually facing what we could be facing from you know, the outer threats within our borders from them, because they're at the beck and call of individuals. When you see someone being harassed, you know, literally stripped in the street side, when you see someone being beaten up, I saw an image of an officer almost breaking someone's leg. And then you wonder, should I be fearing what is happening outside when within is, people fear a man in uniform. That should be an indicator enough that something is wrong. You see a man in uniform and you think, oh God, if I speak to this guy the wrong way, my life is at risk. If I say something he doesn't like, my life is at risk.
What are we speaking about?
Oh, are you not familiar with the state of affairs? No, it's okay, it's okay. We shall educate you. Don't worry, this is a long show, this is an hour, so yes.
Yeah, but okay, I get your argument, and I will give Roy time later on to revert, but my last question before I come to Kato is the question of rights. I don't know, is this right of association, is it one of those inherent rights, or it can be taken and given away to you by the state? Like, is it one of those non-derogables? At least I know as per the Constitution, it is not, because you know we have only 4 of that category. So is there a lacuna in the law? Like, is it one of those rights that we must actually entrench?
You know, I don't even know. Maybe I'm just a bit of a pessimist right now, but I think the Constitution is just a placeholder right now. You know, it's just something to cover up. Yeah, it's just a piece of paper. So the conversation of rights is not, it's something we should continue having, but it's not something we should continue having with the view that it is actually something that will be taken into account. So when we think of the right to association, the right to assemble, when we think of these things in Uganda, what we think of is we must be in the good grace of a certain individual. I think it was in northern Uganda we saw people, you know, taking to the streets, going for their peaceful protest, but it wasn't a peaceful protest. It was just for I think someone was doing a Thanksgiving, an NRM member was doing a Thanksgiving in Lira. And yet in Kampala, someone holds up a placard in church and she's like bundled up and tossed into a vehicle. So what I'm trying to say is that in Uganda, it is the most derogable right, I think. I think it has been taken to, I think people have decided that, oh, you know, this is the one right that it was just put there as a suggestion. So if it fits a certain agenda, we shall assemble. If it fits a certain agenda, you will associate. But until that agenda is met, it is a suggestion in the Constitution.
Okay, fair enough. Laban, let me bring you into the conversation. And you've had the perspective of this gentleman and lady. I don't know, what's your own? You have the leader of the armed forces making such statements. Then you come on ground and compare the way the military has been handling this issue. I don't know, is it one of those command from above? Order from above?
I think even the CDF shouldn't have made such statements.
At all, to start with?
Since he's serving now, shouldn't have made such statements in regards to PLU, because I feel like they were political statements.
What is PLU?
PLU is a pressure group that also is
It's a movement.
Yes, it's like a movement.
So it is not a political...
Encouraging
Yes,
people
but
to be
you see
patriotic.
now, also they were in a way, the ways in which it was formed, its leaders, you know, By the way, I don't think he should be participating in politics directly, but of course he usually uses that window of him being the senior presidential advisor. But you expect that most of the time he will always take the position of the president, the father, at times. And indeed, when I was in Navy, President Museveni made a statement in regards to PLU youth and everything, and you feel like as if he recognizes the PLU youth people into NRA. So you expect, but leaving aside that...
Would you just want to maybe paraphrase the statement for us, if you remember it? Just for the record.
He said, these youth of PLU, whatever what, we should be not fighting each other. You should not, the elders should not be segregating or discriminating. This one is PLU, this one is NRM. They are all our children, that we should treat them equally.
Do you suggest there should be discrimination?
In terms of, if the other one is a movement, then this one is, then they should be able to join if they are not supposed to be discriminated in terms of the political affiliation.
I don't think anyone should be discriminated.
No.
At all, irrespective of
but if, what I'm saying...
More especially when NRM is here, it's a movement. A movement of people who believe in patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. As long as you believe in those four, but regardless of what party you are a member of the movement called the National Resistance Movement. And so, yeah, if you believe in those, you are a member of the movement.
Roy is saying that, are you a believer in democracy? You as Kato.
I am.
Are you a believer in
I am not saying that there should be segregation. I'm not saying that there should be segregation. But what I am saying is that, you see, President Museveni's point was
no one should be segregated.
Yes, no one should be discriminated.
And that should be an issue.
That PLU, what? Because it is an issue, is seeing it in NRM and PLU is seeing it. So that PLU is discriminated. By the time he comes to talk, you say that elders of NRM, they are sending away some of the youth who are not part of maybe NRA, who are part of the PLU, maybe they are part of the NRA. But leaving that aside, the remarks of the CDF, I don't think they were even so serious, because what? I didn't see any member of the PLU in those demonstrations. Like a youth. The youth I know who are active. Some of them were there, as others were showing their discontent, they were showing their fight against corruption. Others were in those hotels eating fish. Celebrating. I didn't say any. That is the truth.
Are you causing?
So maybe unless if he had said the young people of Uganda, I would be so much concerned. That
are you giving us an invitation to look at the credibility of the individual who made such statements? That, I mean, whether you say what, people are not...
Because me, I'm not so much bothered about what... If I had seen the members of PLU, the young people, participating, I would be much concerned that these are also people who are on the same route that we are taking, who wish the good for this country. But mere fact, I did see...
But you see, Kato, Laban,
you don't agree with me that he did say...
We cannot limit Kato.
Okay.
We cannot limit that statement to only its effect being on the PLU youth. It has far-reaching implications. Yes, it could be channeled towards the PLU youth now in that statement, but the context of it, if you read deeper into it, it is not just about the PLU youth. It has a broad. I mean, if you give it a liberal interpretation, then you'll get to see that, okay, wait, this actually has implications on all of us who are seated here. So it is not just about the PLU youth
Yeah,
not people participating.
I don't think really the implication of the CDF has so much implication on me. Maybe you people who are affiliated with it.
No, because this
Because they- you
this
see
is the
this-
commander
they-
of
no.
the defense forces.
Yes, but they are
It is
You
not
see,
just anyone making the
Kidega,
statements.
Comrade Kidega,
Meaning
their
every
remarks you see all their statement you see from people and you feel like this one even I shouldn't be pay much attention because even you expect such.
Yeah.
Even I get it. So you
but
expect
this
such.
is your chief of defense
So why-
forces.
It's maybe to be, there are people who you don't have, it maybe there are people who don't recognize. You know? So why would you force someone that this is yours?
Okay, it's okay. Okay, this is Uganda's. Okay, this is Uganda's chief of defense forces. And if the statements of such a person are taken
Did he make them in
dismissing,
in
then
what
whose
capacity
statements?
did he make them?
Whose statements?
I am
shall
asking,
we,
did he tell? Because what? This man, the CDF, as you call him, did he make those remarks as a CDF, as a presidential advisor, or as the leader of the PLU? Did he, what, in what capacity did he issue?
You seem to suggest that one is exclusive of the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, according
Like
to
if
him,
he
was
says
like-
he's the leader of PLU, he ceases to be the CDA.
according to whatever he makes some statements, according to the statements he makes, sometimes he makes a statement in regards of a certain position. Sometimes, when he's making a political statement, he will always attach himself as a presidential advisor or as, that's what he does. But leaving all that aside, I must say that if I had seen the members of the PLU youth, who have so many, some of them cannot publicly come to say, I'm against this. If you may be like one whom I know, but also I know after the guy, the may not come, but I have not seen any on the streets demonstrating peaceful, demanding for accountability. I have not seen any. So if I had seen any, maybe I may be so much concerned that it's stopping some people. But mere fact that I haven't seen any, and the mere fact that members of PLU are also corrupt. So I'm not surprised by his remarks. Let him take, maybe he's taking air.
Okay, interesting. Roy, let me get back to you. And what if this is actually the end game to get us to talk about I don't know. What if those statements are at times made because of how controversial they are? Those who orchestrate, those who are behind some sort of statecraft and things like that, maybe the purpose is to actually get the conversation into such rooms where now we have, minds talking about the statements of such an individual. So at times, is the controversy intentional, just to get us to achieve something?
It might not be, depending on level of analysis. Because when we are speaking about these statements, we are still speaking about corruption and the expanse of how to fight it. We are discussing whether people should go on the streets or whether the advocacy against corruption should be online. The subject of the discussion is still corruption. So whether it is statecraft or what, perhaps it's not particularly achieving getting the conversation off the subject.
Because why I ask is that, intrinsically speaking, is that why has the statement taken this long? When the demonstrations are even not happening anymore? That is where now we question the relevance. Is it actually meant to address the corruption issue, or it is actually meant to achieve something else? Because if it was meant to actually stop the PLU youth from participating, it could have come earlier when there was still so much, hype and tension and things like that. But now when people are, didn't come out to say.
That seems to suggest that the demonstrations are over, or the agitation against corruption is over, simply because the 23rd is way behind.
No,
us.
at least now there's a truce. There is, you know.
No, actually, there is because corruption didn't end on the 23rd
Yes.
of August, rather of July. So these statements could also be an indication for how in future members who these statements are targeting react to the mobilization to go on the street. So they could be made in anticipation for what could come.
Okay.
But also these statements come on the backdrop of several statements made by the Secretary General of the PLU regarding corruption and how they have been reacting to it. Perhaps it's quite dismissive of Comrade Laban to say he didn't see any member of
He said
the
take to the
PLU
streets.
take to the streets. But also that would suggest two things: that either he has exclusive information on who is a member and who is not on PLU.
I said
He has
the
the-
one I know as part of the youth.
No,
So-
but listen, I mean, it could mean you have the movement register of PLU as an exclusive document, so you know the ones you saw on the list, you didn't see them on the streets.
The one I
The
saw.
ones you know on the list
But
to be
I
members
know
of
comrades who subscribe to that movement. I
Also,
know.
it could also mean that he knows everyone who was on the streets.
Not, but the majority of the people who are on the street demonstrating were seen by, because if
Maybe,
you
yeah.
are not seen, then how do I know that you
No,
are?
but
There was even a list that was, you know.
Yes, for
no, the
Publish
list
of-
was
of-
115
of-
people who were arrested.
Yes.
Okay, who were arrested.
Arrested. Okay.
Yes, but not everyone who participated
Was arrested.
was arrested.
But do you
Not
know,
everyone who was arrested posted it.
But do you know?
No, not everyone who was on the street posted it. Not everyone who was on the street was on camera or was on TV or what. So it's quite dismissive.
I'm saying, do you know any youth among the people?
Yes, I
Like
do.
who?
I don't have to mention because I mean
Why?
I don't have to come here on camera and name who enjoyed their freedom of expression.
No, but if you're dismissing his point,
That among
you're
the
dismissing his point.
I'm simply saying there are members of the PLU that I know that participated in the demonstration.
Like
but I
who?
also don't know what mentioning their names would mean for,
would
for
know that
them.
maybe they are members
for-
of it is
No, for
members
their
of
being in the PLU. You get?
That's in the
No,
point.
we don't get.
I get it.
No, he must get.
He's not getting
What I'm
either.
saying is that why I can't sit here and mention the members of PLU that I know to have participated is that I, for one, don't know for sure what mentioning them would mean for their membership, more especially when their movement leader has made such statements. You get? So I
know.
so I
For
wouldn't.
you shouldn't mind about their leader.
I would mind. I would mind because
You do know that this
be-
also
because
the-
I also understand the context
And let me
in
tell
which
you,
all
let me
this
tell
is
you
said
this,
and is happening.
Even I don't think members of the so-called movement called PLU, even the young people who have sense, who can sit, who have knowledge of, I don't think they can come and differ. And this is one of the problems that young people we have in this country. That even when maybe I believe in so-called movement, a certain movement or politics, that even when my leader comes and makes a statement that is contrary to what we believe in or what I believe in other young people who wishes the discount or good, I may not come out to disagree with him. Let me tell you, if today, me I believe, you know that I am a follower of ANT. I'm a member, and also I believe in the leadership of Mugishamu. But if he comes and he makes a statement that I feel that it's not good for this country, I have no whatsoever. I will differ with him, and that is the problem. That is what we should do. That not only to always follow, maybe the party position or the supreme leader of the party's position, but we should always follow what we wish for this country. But I don't think any member, as he has said, I don't think a member of that movement even can come. The so-called Agaba Ivan, they can now not come to make a such statement or to follow the word, even when they believe that at their heart something else.
So Ndugu,
So it is something that you have to take as you join the NRA. Even if when they are on the other side, where they are taking the country into something, you should
I think
you should always be like that. Because I've seen you, sometimes you make statement that as if you are going somewhere.
I don't understand.
No, I think what Laban is trying to say is that we must always put country before anything else. Before our political affiliations, the country is here to stay.
I think that's what I started with. Yes.
So the question of does it matter where you belong? Does it matter where you belong and what your leader in that belonging says? Should that come in between you and the fight for what is right for this country?
Well, I mentioned in beginning that the statements have a huge chilling effect on how people are going to interact with this conversation, which is not right. Okay, but I also mentioned that regarding the conversation on rights, the citizens also have not only a right but a duty to this fight against corruption, and that duty cannot be relegated by this statement. I think I mentioned
you did.
That these statements must not replace the duty of the citizen in the conversation on accountability, on good governance, on the fight against corruption. Because this corruption is a cancer that affects all of us, regardless of whatever affiliation you are. And I continue to make that clarion call on this fight against corruption. Because particularly for the NRM, the role of government as we understand it is to create a healthy, conscious mass. Okay? But this consciousness or this health of the citizens and whatever we stand for are usually or in hugely affected by corruption. Okay? Even when we say we intend to create an educated mass, as long as we do not uproot corruption, it will affect the implementation of UPE, it will affect the implementation of USE, it will affect the quality of education, it will affect the quantities of people who come to access this education. You've seen the president, or who is the chairman of the NRM, speak hugely against schools that demand so much from the students, even when they are facilitated under these various government programs. Even
I wanted to ask you something. Do you support the peaceful demonstration by the young people?
Yes, I do.
You support them?
Yes, I do.
Then your president of the party, chairperson of the party, the chairman of the party, he doesn't.
Actually, he does.
No, actually, I have a question.
He has hugely.
Roy, I have a question.
He's one of the biggest. He's one of the biggest mobilizers for the protest.
Roy, what does peaceful demonstration look like to you people?
Peaceful demonstration is one that is mobilized for, organized for, in accordance with the law.
Okay.
That when, of course, we all have a right to assemble for whatever reason.
Do you think these youth who demonstrated were demonstrated according to the law?
Hugely,
Right.
yes.
Hugely.
Yes.
So
Yes. So, but the president said, do you agree with this statement?
What he has made
That,
several statements.
That, for example, those
Foreign-funded
financed,
Playing with fire.
they are playing by fire, they shouldn't take to the street, they should go ask Kororo. We do, those are,
Actually,
they are
I
being
think-
funded.
I think the
They are
most
being
key
funded by
statement.
foreigners. Do you agree? First, wait.
First, harmonize your
Yes,
question
no,
so that I
no.
answer
No,
one
answer him
first.
Okay,
first.
okay,
Answer
answer me. Do you agree with the statement that the young people, because you agree that these young people followed the law and they have goodwill?
No,
for
I
the
said
government?
hugely.
Hugely.
Hugely. Yes.
So where did they
Yes.
fall short?
Of course, I said they must be organized.
Do you think they were organizing
In,
according to
in
the law?
accordance with the law. Where did they fall short legally
Yes.
speaking?
Where they fell short was they interacted with the police.
They
Yeah, yes.
explain this interaction to me.
Of course, it was a public interaction. They interacted with the police, which asked several questions regarding how many people are going to participate in the protest, where is the protest going to begin, which route are you choosing to take, what is the destination, and the police asked all those questions, particularly to organize for the logistical
What does the law
support.
say?
For the
Shouldn't I answer first?
Yes, you have,
Okay.
no.
To
What does the
organize,
law-
For the
because
logistical-
whereas the youths and these protesters have a right to go to the streets and do whatever they want in protest, there's also there are also 2 million or 3 million dwellers of
Okay.
the city who also have a right to come to the city and fend for their
my
families.
question is,
So we in the enjoyment of your right, there shouldn't be at any one point where the rights of others are relegated.
do you feel like the rights of others were
So the police,
disputed?
in the same constitution, the police also has a duty
What I am
to
saying,
make sure that as you
What I
enjoy
am
your
saying-
right, the rights of
do you
others
think,
are also
do you
protected.
think the rights of others were not protected during that?
Can I
No,
ask a
the police
question?
did exactly that.
If I may
to
ask,
protect the
what
rights
does what
of-
does
of,
the law say? Does the law say that you have to tell police has to guide you where to pass or everything?
No, that is within the duties of the police,
Can
which
I
are also
ask-
But
constitutional.
what does the law say?
Which are also in that
terms
same
of some-
constitution.
on the rights
Okay,
of the
Roy.
people to demonstrate. You
Roy.
have supposed to inform the police
Monday, 26th
that today,
July, right?
then they provide the security to you. But also, do you agree that by with the remarks of the president, that some of the young people who peacefully, because you agree that they peacefully demonstrated,
Yes.
yes, you agree entirely.
I say they hugely. I mean, let's
Okay.
use my words.
Okay.
If you intend to quote
Okay.
me,
You
bring
quote
in-
me
I'll bring in
exactly.
that-
Do you
Danita.
agree that with the president?
Kato, your
the remarks
hands are over.
that those who demonstrated peacefully were being funded by the foreigners.
I mean, he has intelligence.
But
to
do you
that
agree
effect.
with him?
Okay.
What is your
Laban has put Roy on a cross-examination. But
I mean, it is also
But-
allowed. It's
but-
within the free speech that the NRM hugely protects.
yes,
We're
Yeah.
so grateful.
I hear you.
We're so grateful.
Danita, you've had Roy Rugumayo introduce the argument of limitations. You know that yes, you have your right and etc, but also there are limitations to these rights, more so to the extent where they begin to infringe on the rights of others. So where is the thin line between the enjoyment of your right vis-a-vis the limitation to protect the rights of others?
The thin line lies in the agenda. Roy, my dear brother Roy, I think that's what they say in your political spaces when they mean to, create a sort of camaraderie, right? My brother Roy. So let's not play
We are
about these
brothers
things.
and
Wait.
sisters.
Let's not play about these things. We have seen time and time again, like if you decided right now as the NRM that you're going to take to the streets in a peaceful march against corruption, do you believe that you would get the support of the police? Do you think that yours would be considered a peaceful march? Just yes or no. Do you believe yours would be considered a peaceful march?
I beg you to
Just
repeat the question.
if you decided as the
Yes.
NRM youth to take to the streets in a peaceful protest against corruption,
Yes.
do you believe yours would be considered a peaceful protest?
All would be yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Right.
Well, I believe
That
that.
is the difference
All
between
would be.
All would be.
Yeah.
That is the difference between what these protesters of 23rd and 25th.
I mean, all protests would be. Yeah.
That is the difference. The agenda.
We've organized the 1 million women march with Stella Nyanza and opposition activists. Yeah. With police protection and all that.
This is beautiful.
Yes.
This is really
march?
beautiful.
Yes.
And
This
you
is,
are not
you know,
arrested.
a very interesting thing about that. Yesterday, I happened to be in a conversation with Miriam Atembe, and she mentioned something very interesting. That I forgot the year exactly, but they decided to, as the women, those women's movement, to take up a protest, a peaceful protest, from National Theatre, I believe, until Parliament and the like. So they gathered there. She said she was a bit late. So by the time she arrived at the protest they had informed the police about, the protest they had gotten permission to conduct. The women she had been protesting with had been bundled up in vans. They had been carted off to Chira Road police station. Some of them had covered up. Some of them had fled. They were in a cell by the time they found her. She found them. That is the difference between a right and the limitation, the agenda. Because when someone in a yellow shirt with a yellow banner decides that they want to hold a peaceful protest against corruption, then it is considered a right, a constitutionally upheld right. When I decide in my red shirt, in my black shirt, in my completely disassociated, non-partisan agenda to take up my constitutional mandate to fight against corruption, to assemble, then it is considered a foreign-funded initiative. When we see Miriam Atembe say that, my women, we had gotten permission, we had taken all the initiatives, we had taken all the steps, but my women who are fighting against corruption, who are having a peaceful protest against corruption, were bundled up brutally in police vehicles and taken to the cells. That's when you see the difference. I think it's been obvious who this lady is in our country. For the last, I think, 20 years or so, she has been quite the contrarian in regards to the government standing. Now, what we see right now, let's not pretend like the Constitution is not something someone flips through and says, this looks like an interesting thing, you tell me more about it. And then when they tell them more about it, and this person, I mean the president, when they tell them more about it, they're like, but I think it can work like this instead. What do you think? Actually, yeah, let it work like this. This has just become a mantle, a sort of mechanism for someone to infringe on someone else's rights. When it suits a certain agenda, then the limitation conversation is brought in. When it suits a certain agenda, then the constitutional mandate is brought in. Guys, Roy will tell us that what he would be doing would be a peaceful protest. But what is what you're doing any different than what Namara Claire was doing when she held up a placard in church, and she was bundled up in a police vehicle and just put in prison?
Actually, it seems Roy agrees with the conduct and the operation of the police.
I don't understand where you draw the line. I don't understand.
No, do you?
White mailing.
It seems.
Oh, is
So
that
that is
the
proof that you don't, that you are contrary to what police did.
Where do you guys draw the
Yes.
line? Like, very
Do you agree?
seriously.
With whatever police was doing?
No, I think I've made that clear.
That
I
what?
think you have not, and I
That what?
think you
You
guys
haven't?
have not.
No, I do not agree.
Whatever they were doing, also police was unlawful. They were abusing the constitution. You agree?
I beg your pardon?
Do you agree that they are abusing the constitution?
No, they are doing their duty in...
So you agree with whatever they did, that they did their duty in terms of...
I think you're making statements which I agree, then you change the statement.
No, you agree with what? Okay, you agree with that.
Because he makes one statement, I say
Okay, you
I
agree
agree,
with
he says,
what?
so you agree
Roy,
entirely,
do you
completely.
agree, Roy? Do you agree with the operations?
No,
of the
I agree
police?
that the police had a duty to protect the rights of other citizens
Yes, that is.
in their...
Which is okay.
Listen, what I do not agree is the extent of force.
Is the extent of force?
Yes, because the force was not rational, okay, in the handling of the protest, but the action of protecting the rights of others in the enjoyment of
I have a question
some
though.
rights.
Let's first stop this conversation.
Roy,
You guys
the
always
police had
bring
a
up this
duty. The
discourse.
police had
Yes,
a
he has
duty.
a duty to
What
protect the
what
people.
we do not agree with is a police officer grabbing a protester's leg with the intention of breaking it. That's a rogue officer, and we cannot use that example to paint the image of the entire police
Then
institution.
what do you observe in terms of President
And
Museveni
there
when
are-
he says, if
and
you
there
go
are-
and demonstrate,
and
you
there-
will receive fire? That statement.
Roy, you make it sound like it's an isolated. Actually, can I say something? Can I say something very briefly? You make it sound like it's an isolated incident.
Yes, it is.
No. You've
Yes, it is.
actually. No,
I
can I
think we
just
are-
continue? Can I
Maybe
just?
just one statement.
Let me just-
We are dealing with the police, which was, and in this very conversation, which you have hugely, the context has hugely been juxtaposed with the Kenyan context. I think you made him, or
I
you made
made
the
that
statement. You made
yes.
the juxtaposition.
In regards to the army.
Yes, in regard to the army, in regard, perhaps now we can extend to how the protests were handled. Okay? Now, we are talking about a police which fired no tear gas canisters,
Oh,
fired
bless
no
their
live
souls.
bullets. In regard to this protest,
Those people are peaceful.
fired, I mean, the Kenyans were it.
Can I say
The Kenyans
something?
were
Why
it.
became that they were destroyed?
So,
in Kenya.
I mean,
They attacked parliament.
3 days into the Kenyan protest.
Which was here
Listen,
it was totally
three-
different.
Okay, let us listen.
3 days
to
into the
each other.
Kenyan protest, 50 people had died, or call it 49, okay? Because, I mean, you can't round off to the nearest, okay? When it comes to human life, 49 people were killed within 3 days. Here, not even one
Do you know
broken
how
leg.
sad you sound when
Okay.
you realize that?
No, I mean,
You're
we
weighing a peaceful protest by the number of deaths had.
Yes.
When someone
yes,
was
because
standing.
the juxtaposition was made. Okay? So let's just continue with that juxtaposition. We can't choose it when it fits
you
the
are
narrative.
twisting the narrative that I brought
No, the
forward.
narrative is the Kenyan system, the Kenyan courts, the Kenyan military operates in a way that is pro-citizen.
Yes.
So you,
Okay? In the context of that protest.
the Kenyan judiciary.
Yes.
The
I'm
Kenyan
giving you the
judiciary.
same-
I am
same-
not
What
telling
I
you.
was saying.
I'm giving you the
What
same
I'm saying
context
that
here.
Okay,
Roy
let
agrees.
us
This, as we
let
go
us
forward.
listen to each other. I think Danita has been trying to put a point across. Laban, I will bring you in. But yes,
Let's
Danita.
listen to her.
No, I
Because,
think there is also something you're twisting in regards to what I'm saying. I brought for the
Okay,
conversation.
you tell me what you mean.
I am trying to.
Because, yeah, you do.
I've really
I
tried.
mean,
No,
it's
so
what NRM is building.
yes, I'm
The-
so
the
grateful.
conversational democracy.
Yes, we're so grateful for the 38 years you've given us. So grateful. So, what I'm trying to say is, what happened in Kenya is different from what happens in Uganda. I'll give you an example. And I want to put names to these people so that you understand these are human people. Aljab Musinguzi was arrested at Oasis Mall. What he was doing is he wasn't even part of the protest. He was just walking by as the other 4 protesters. I believe there was B-Wall, there was Pfizer, Thomas, and Baron. They were protesting. 4 individuals, they had just parked their cars, they had just settled in, they were now studying their march to parliament. Aljab was just walking through the basement. To this day, he's being brought back to court today because he missed bail last week.
He'll
I
be
would
given
no.
one too.
That is the problem. Must I spend another week in prison? But that's what the point. Someone was walking through a basement, and he was arrested, and he was tossed in Luzira for what? It's getting on 3 weeks now. 3 weeks. He's been sat in Luzira prison. Who knows what his plans were for that day? He was probably going to see his family, probably going to see his kids, probably going to do something. He had plans for his day and they were not related to the protest, but to this day he's suffering those implications. That is what I mean when I tell you that you cannot say that what these people were doing was anything but a peaceful protest. But then to go further, you cannot say that the way these protests have been handled by the police, by anyone involved, any security forces involved, has been anything but unconstitutional. You make it sound like when I mention the police officer breaking someone's leg, like it's an isolated incident. Actually, there's something you've done in this entire conversation. You've been entirely tone deaf. When I brought up the issue of me being scared of an army officer, you said, which country are you living in? Do not act like you do not know what happens in this country today, because that is insulting to the people of this country. That is insulting to the people you claim to serve. That is insulting to the people you claim to have given a voice, a place to serve, a place to exist peacefully. When people, someone is just walking down the street and an army officer, I think there's been so many incidences. Someone is in a bar and an army officer decides to just open fire. And then you say, in which country are you living? I live in the same country as you. And if you've chosen to be blinded, then that is your own issue. Another thing, it is not an isolated incident. It is not an isolated incident when a man decides to break, when a rogue officer, you call him, the entire police force is rogue. The entire police force is serving someone else. There is no security force in this country that is serving the people. Let us get that straight. It is not an isolated incident when I say someone is trying to break someone's leg. Because from the street, it was Nana, I believe, Nana Mwafrika, who was stripped on the street side. There have been several videos of that side. There were protesters right outside KCCA who were stripped. I think one of them was Ruth, another one was Abigail. I want to give names to these people so that you understand. You put numbers to them. These people have faces, they have families. So do not say that it is a rogue incident. It is not a rogue incident. Every single one of these protesters, Otieno George, he came back home injured because of the time he faced. He couldn't even walk. And you believe that it is a rogue incident. It is not a rogue incident. Have some shame. Have some shame. The entire police force is a rogue department. The entire thing, the entire way this thing has been handled has been a gross display of violence, of a breakdown of constitutionalism, of a breakdown of discourse. You claim to have given us a voice. What voice is this? A muffled voice. You are stepping on our necks and saying that you have given us a voice. Have some shame.
All right, we are due for a short commercial break. As you can see, it is quite interesting in here. Don't move a muscle. See you after this.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Karibuni sana. We'll be back from that short commercial break. Like I had informed you, we have been joined by a fourth and last panelist, and all the way from the Patriotic League of Uganda Youth Forum. The name is Ivan Agaba. Ivan, we are very pleased to have you.
Yes, thank you for the invitation, Kidega. Apologies for late coming. Late coming is not one of the pillars of the PLU. Okay. But transparency and accountability are.
And let's just begin right from there, because what's your opinion? I don't know if he's the leader of the PLU or something, but I know him as the Chief of Defense Forces. Came out to say that PLU youth are not allowed to demonstrate. Where does that leave your right enshrined under Article 29 and, of course, Article 17, the duties of a citizen?
Well, I'll begin with a clarification that General Mohozi is currently the patron of the PLU, and Chairman Toyota, Nwajira Kaguta, is the chairman of the PLU, so he's a patron. So,
so both the chairman of PLU and NRM are Kaguta?
They're all Kaguta.
Interesting.
So and feel free to share your observations along the way.
So what does a patron do?
So a patron is sort of the overseer of the activities that the PLU does, and the chairman is operation on the ground. So I hope that's also clear.
Okay, now put into context the statements of you're not allowed to participate in demonstrations.
What?
No, you see, and I think I shared this a while back, that as a PLU, one, we do not condone corruption. We actually condemn it. Corruption is an endemic that is so fatal to the forward propulsion of Uganda as a nation. So we condemn it in the toughest of words. Now, two is, what we do not agree with is the bit of physical confrontation. I don't know, the preamble to our constitution talks about the tumultuous times that Uganda had to go through that we do not want to rescind back to. And because of that, we do not believe in physical confrontation as a means of the populace sharing their grievances or venting out their concerns to those that are the powers that.
So, in other words, peaceful protests are a recipe. They lay foundation for.
Yes. So we believe in a peaceful way of protesting. And
what does peaceful way of protesting mean?
Well, peaceful is broad and can take multiple interpretations.
But you can contextualize it as per PLU's meaning.
So as per PLU's meaning, and I think I've countlessly said this, that, you see, I've never seen Parliament being held at ransom like it was when the Agora people, Agatha and her friends, made an expose. And I think digital activism, being an emerging trend, has sort of reshaped the terrain of activism as we used to know it. So we are firm believers in digital activism. Our patron is a very good digital activist. He's very active on Twitter. He's very active on calling out the corrupt. And we believe that the digital activism line, to us, can hold the leaders more accountable than physical confrontation ever can and ever will.
So when someone holds out a placard, it's called physical confrontation now, eh?
Physical confrontation can also take multiple interpretations.
Of course.
Do you think whatever the young people are doing in March is their placards? Do you think it was a peaceful protest or it wasn't? Or it was a confrontation?
To me, I think it was, it might have been right, but it wasn't necessary.
What I'm saying, do you think it was a peaceful demonstration or not? That is the answer I want from me.
Not in PLU's definition of peaceful demonstration.
But according to the constitution of Uganda.
Well, I come here to speak, not on behalf of, but as a member of the PLU.
Not as a citizen of Uganda.
Yes, and it's the two sayings of PLU.
Not as a citizen of Uganda.
That I come to share here.
Not as a citizen of Uganda.
But I'm a citizen of Uganda.
So as a citizen of Uganda, do you feel that, what do you see according to what? Do you think it was a peaceful demonstration?
I won't go down that alley.
Okay, another thing.
I'm a member of the
Do you
PLU Forum.
think, according also to you have said the PLU, you embrace digital activism in terms of to fight corruption. You as a name, as you said, as a subscribe PLU, you when you do digital, have you done anything to show that you are fighting corruption?
As an individual?
Yes.
Oh yes. I'm always retweeting and liking.
You can't be this
and contributing to X spaces where corruption is actually being condemned. So if you want to, and you see,
that's his contribution.
So he's also telling his audience that this is right.
And this is
what
right.
he's saying about corruption is right.
And from the Parliament Exhibition Expo, we have actually seen that the power of a like and a retweet can follow more than even a peaceful,
so what comments do you make of
no, actually, first rate.
Who are even on remand?
First rate.
What?
The PLU condemns corruption and openly, and we have very many of our members. Honorable Michael Mawanda is a very big wig in PLU. I don't think he has been recused of the charges preferred against him because he belongs to PLU. And if any of our members happen.
So what you're saying is that if you so decided you have the power, there's power within PLU to recuse him, to have him recused. because that is what you're implying. But we're so gracious, you guys. Our guy has not been recused. You should feel happy. We're doing our constitutional mandate. Is that what you're telling us?
Oh yes. It's because
Sorry?
before in this country, very many years back, we've seen very big wigs in government actually being indicted on corruption charges, and most of them happen to, in one or another, survive that web. But that's not PLU's way of doing things. But we believe that the digital activism line is a very sustainable way and a very practical one, given the situation. Because, you see, we are with you people. We agree with you. But ours is, we are reformists. And we are reformists from within. We do not believe that, you see, to antagonize, we must...
So you don't believe in the Constitution, that means?
Can I
that
ask?
it gives the citizen right to demonstrate, to use any means, as long as it is peaceful, to demonstrate.
But can I ask Agaba, how
So
many...
that means you don't believe in some articles of the Constitution.
Agaba,
You
how
guys,
many...
this is a mob.
The
No,
Constitution
this
is a brand law.
No, you can also inquire.
I mean,
I don't know why
I am allowing free interaction.
This is a conversation.
Why should you determine on how I should peacefully demonstrate?
No, they're
No, 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 no,
reformists.
no.
They're
Laban,
reformists.
you can ask a question even when yes.
My point is,
Okay, so you ask and then you allow him to respond.
My point is,
Yeah.
peaceful protests are defined in a certain way in the Constitution.
Yeah, and what is that way?
But on this forum, I can't represent
Who has said to you?
what peaceful protests should be.
So this is the constitution and this is PLU, right? So this is the constitution and this is PLU.
So
no,
My-
there can't be that.
My
This is
guy.
the constitution, this is PLU, right?
No, the man has said it. The man has said
Okay,
it.
let me be the one to ask the questions so that we are a bit organized and to move on to the rest of us. But just conclusively with you, Ivan, is that the question of like we have had all these peaceful marches in the past. In fact, there's a time when the president himself led a march to Kololo, but that has not addressed the issue of corruption. So now when young people say that, okay, now for us our approach is that we are going to make our voices heard through demonstrations and through a protest, because the other means that we have tried have not worked. But then you come up to say, no, let's insist on the ways that clearly to them is not working. So do you have the political will to actually address the issue of corruption?
I would like to answer that twofold. The first is, all will be said and done. Those making noise on social media will, those that hold placards and go onto the streets will, those of you that are opting to get these people out on bail will. The ultimate $1 million question is, will corruption increase or decrease?
It will increase.
Increases.
Yes, and your guess is as good as mine. Corruption increases. Why? Because there is absolutely no political will in the current establishment.
That is a very dismissive
do away
statement
with corruption.
of the work of the NRM.
It may be lip service, and it always has been. We can share a missive, a litany of people that have escaped of the corruption law in this country, and they've done away with it.
Actually, some have been convicted and reappointed
Yes, and
into
reappointed
cabinet.
as ministers in cabinet.
So Roy, and because he has introduced the question of political will, you come from the party that is in charge of forming government and in charge of running the state. Is there a political will in the NRM to fight corruption?
So I think the political will is there, and it is enshrined in the birth of the NRM. I think point number 7 on the 10-point program is fighting and defeating corruption. We can discuss the extent, but there is huge will and there is so much evidence to show for it. Since the coming into place of NRM, a lot of democratic structures have been put in place, because this corruption cannot be fought on the whims and feelings of the people. There must be
Structure.
some form of structure, whether we are here or are not here in future. There must be some form of structure that is put in place and empowered to fight corruption. And there is commitment from the NRM to that extent. The IGG, the Office of the Auditor General, the new anti-corruption unit in the State House, the anti-corruption courts of law that have been formed and empowered to particularly fight the scourge that corruption is. And many people from way back have been arrested, have been charged, have been found guilty. Some are some are even still serving sentences in prison. I mean, I said we can discuss the efficiency and some failures within those same systems, but we cannot say in grand conclusion that there has been no effort at all to fight corruption, with the Jamwas in prison, with the Kabakumba Maskos losing their positions in cabinet, with the Saida Bumba issues, with the Captain Mike Mukulas, the Professor Bukenya losing their appointments. So many, the likes of, even in the recent case of the Karamoja Iron Sheet saga, people losing their cabinet appointments, still in courts of law. Others were actually almost all of them were put in jail. What they had taken was taken back into the government stores and sent to the rightful beneficiaries. We've seen many accounting officers arrested on corruption charges and all that. So we cannot be as dismissive. We cannot. It is right to differ, and that is the beauty of the democracy formed by the NRM, that we must. The consciousness of the mass cannot be a single pile that all of us must say we are different from.
Pluralism, basically.
Yes. Yeah, there is a lot of pluralism. So we can't say for sure that there has not been political will to fight corruption. What we can discuss is the effectiveness of the infrastructure and the political structure in fighting corruption. But the will is there.
The will is there even when we have
government even
officials.
when we have some fish breaking through the net. There is a net.
Okay. Danita, the issue of political will, that you have people who will make statements like someone has been implicated for corruption, but then at a public rally they will say, no, this person is still your MP forever. And so that begs a serious question of political will. From where you're seated, from where Roy is seated, it is there. I don't know from where you're seated.
10 trillion Uganda shillings. Like, that's the amount of money we lose to corruption every year. Like, that is 10 trillion Uganda shillings. I wonder what we can do with 10 trillion Uganda shillings if we had, a group of people who are actually determined to fight the scourge that is corruption. If we have these people arrested, who are we going to work with? I wonder who said that. Oh, wait. The man with the most political will, the gentleman who told us that if we were protesting corruption, he would have joined us on the streets.
Because he has before.
He has joined us on. No. It is not out. And actually, I want to state one thing clear. The gentleman that came into power in 1986 and the gentleman we have in power right now, they're two completely different people. It's a shame. It's a shame to see what the country has deteriorated into. It is it's a grotesque show of what power can do when it corrupts. Now, we have people telling us, and Roy is here, I commend you, this is a hard job you're doing, both you and Agaba, but you're doing it so bravely, to come here and defend the indefensible, but you're doing it so brilliantly. I don't know where this show political will you speak of comes from. I do not know where
He
it comes
has
from.
given you
The examples, the
Ecosystem, the
multiple,
parks, all of
the
those are
multiple
nets.
examples that you know we all witness, and yet I can get example after example, but the numbers do not lie. The numbers do not lie. We're at a terrible, terrible, terrible all-time high. There's only one measure of political will to fight corruption in this country, and that is the statistics. If I tell you 10 trillion Uganda shillings have been lost to corruption, then you should something should ring in your mind. All these offices set up, the IG's office, the Auditor General's office, the Anti-Corruption Unit in State House. We have had this conversation time after time again. Is it necessary that we have those many, first of all? But then, who is paying for all those people in there? Why is it you guys couldn't have just restructured? If you had found an issue with the IG's office, why couldn't you have just restructured it, made it perfect, and then decided, oh, it's gonna actually function the way it's supposed to function? Do away with the issues. But instead, you have decided, let us create offices in every little region, in every little structure. I wonder why. That's another question. What is the point? You said structures might exist. Structures already existed. This structure existed, but you have decided, oh, it's not working well enough for us. Let us create another one. My point is that there's just certain statements that you hear and you're just disappointed. I don't even want to say much about this because it is quite obvious. The only thing that we need to measure is 10 trillion Uganda shillings, and if we imprison these people, who are we going to work with? Like, what do you mean? And then you come and tell us your dear old gentleman has the political will to fight corruption? The only measure you should use here are the numbers. And let me ask you, are you content with the numbers?
I agree with you that the dear old gentleman no longer has political will to fight corruption.
I'm sure you agree with us.
Yeah, so I'm not defending
I'm
him.
sure I am
a reason,
certain.
you know.
So I'm not defending
For
him.
the alternative, he wants
No,
to
I'm not
present.
going to engage in that conversation. I'm not going to engage in the conversation because I take none of these sides. But are you content with the numbers as NRM youth? Do you not? Let me just rephrase the question. When you look at the numbers and you look at Uganda in 1986, do you see and realize that there is actually political will based solely off of the numbers, not the structures you have been here telling us about?
I think
Just make it a yes or no question. This
it
is my
can't
time to
be a
speak.
yes or no
Ah,
question. It
just-
has a context.
briefly, just either give us a yes or no, or you pass the question.
It can't be a yes or no question.
Okay,
So you're
then,
passing the question.
Yeah, sure.
okay. So, but Laban, and thank you, Danita. Laban, I want to bring you in because what would be the alternative strategy to fighting corruption? As someone who belongs to the alternative political institution.
Before I come to that, I also want to agree with my colleagues that there is no political will because
Which colleagues?
this one and this. Of course, you know,
Not you, don't worry. It's
you know, it will be a history if I do agree with you. We used it to agree before, but anyway, because if you are the appointing officer, you are appointing authority, you go and appoint someone who was convicted for corruption. You had a gentleman. The case is there. He's a president. He was convicted. This guy was appointed recently for the revenue something, you know.
Yes.
It's called who? It's called who? You should be knowing because you're
Why
in
should
NRA.
I be knowing?
Yes,
Because
you're
you're
in
in
NRA.
It's called?
Because I shouldn't be so much informed about the government issue than you.
It's called
You should.
Karimera.
Karimera, you know him? He was appointed for what? First remind me.
The
You are a something.
yeah.
State
But
House
you know that
overseeing, right?
the case is there. He was convicted on issues to do what?
With
I think
corruption.
fraud.
Corruption fraud, yeah.
But he was appointed to head the unit
Yes.
that is responsible to look for.
If you said the
Yeah,
thief,
so-
catch a thief.
No, what we are saying is that
You appoint a thief.
you cannot base on you cannot base on the track record of Saul to measure
To
Paul.
judge him as Paul.
To judge him as Paul.
No. If someone, for example,
Because you cannot say he was a prosecutor. He was a persecutor of the Christian faith, but he also wrote 14 books for the Christian faith.
Some appointments should be made on the historical records. That's why people do background check. People, you will not be appointed to certain.
You don't believe in reform?
God is the best background checker.
No.
And when he takes
that
Saul,
means
he's
you
so
agree that people who have been convicted for corruption, they should head the corruption unit, like the IGG's office, who have been convicted. Do you mean we are short of people who can lead that?
No, I think you're making a very, very shallow statement.
I get it. But then that's the big one because but the man was appointed, was convicted for fraud. He was convicted, but he's now going to be the head to catch the thief. For him was worth the thief. But nevertheless, I think in Uganda, whether we are taking up streets, we are taking up demonstration, peaceful demonstration, but I think also as we take all that, we also have to look at a bigger picture. And one, I think that to fight corruption in Uganda, we need the regime change, not only the whatever we are doing, as we demand right now, because we cannot sit back. But we need to have systems of governance that even the president should not be the one to make some appointments for people to fight corruption. To have systems. You see, when you go to some countries which are serious about such issues, you will not find even the head of state or someone making that this is how we should fight corruption. Someone is walking from Kororo on the roads that corruption walk. No. Count. Are you getting? We need systems of governance that someone will observe. That corruption cannot happen when you have systems. Countries like Switzerland and what? Even sometimes you may not know their presidents. You may not see anything like they are appointing so many IGD or what. We need that system of governance that everyone will be held accountable by the system. Not that if this one is convicted for corruption, maybe the directive has to come from the above. That, for example, if someone is convicted for corruption, it should never be employed.
But you know our criminal justice system is about reform as well. Like there is the punitive, yes, there is the retribution, but there's also
Reform.
yes,
No,
reform.
we should change that. For example, if Agaba is convicted for such issue, should not be employed even in what?
You see,
In
like,
public
if I
service.
Actually, that is
Never be appointed.
restorative.
Talk with that holier than
That
thou.
is restorative.
Oh, but if we're holier than thou, we're holier than thou. Make no mistake.
So
There are
how do you know
certain.
that I've reformed?
And it's why
I don't know about the rest
How
of
do you
you.
know?
It's why Ugandans keep voting.
No, I'm
because you know
asking,
that
how do you know that Kato was a thief today? I have reformed and you are appointed?
your action.
No, what is the actions of Kalemera? According to the
He's now heading a unit.
Okay. We need to move on to the last segment, which I think we shall have maybe about 5 minutes to finish it up. But the question of institutions, I think, keeps on looming. That the independence of our institutions really lead the fight against corruption. That you have a judicial system where a charge sheet is presented before them, and the people who are accused are simply in court as a transition route to prison. Like there is no checking of, okay, these charges, do they meet the standard? So the question is, the institutions that we put our faith in to fight corruption, do they have what it takes? And I'll begin with the Agaba.
To me, I think, you see, Roy here shared a litany of anti-corruption agencies, very many of them. So, to me, I think quantitatively, we may be doing very well. So the question is, how do we make the qualitative leap? The qualitative leap is by one, having the political will. That how some get caught in the web and some others get to escape it is because of political will. But on a broader, grander scale, corruption in Uganda is a social cultural issue, to me, I think. The other day I was passing by these primary schools. When they are campaigning leadership, it is serious campaigns. They even print posters and give out sweets. That was not the case when we were still young children. So, from a very tender age, these children are sort of acclimatized to this thinking that it's always a quid pro quo. They must give you something for you to give me a vote. So I think which broadly and largely makes it social culture. But is it to the contrary? You know, sometimes I also, as I conclude, I also write down a few things. Just don't get to publish them. I was writing something called From World Order to Chaos. No one ever asks why Africa is the virgin of this continent. I mean, you have Chinese and the Russians and the Americans all fighting to have a piece of the African cake. Why? It's because, you see, whereas the rest of the world is moving from a state of order to one of chaos and unpredictability, Africa still remains as the most predictable. African systems are so predictable. They may be corrupt, but they are predictable. Why or how? Let me just give one example. Our neighbors to the southwest had an election. And the winner won with the margin they won with. And he was congratulated in a very neck-to-neck election between Paul and Kagame. And he won, and Paul won. So, African systems are so predictable in that, Moses, if you are driving out of here and the policeman waves you down and you have no permit, you know where you're supposed to get the permit from your wallet. So, African systems are so predictable. So, the point is, one, let us address it as a socio-cultural issue, attack it from the roots, and it is why as reformists in PLU, for us to believe we can actually uproot this endemic called corruption, but from within. From within, because our patron has the goodwill, hasn't been cited anywhere in any corruption scandal. I challenge anyone, including Laban here, present one, if it is there, which I'm sure it isn't. And when we get the opportunity to take this country over, if the citizens find us fit to take this country over and give us the mandate, we are very much willing to change the tide of things. Yes.
Wow. Very interesting parting shots. Roy, your comment and also your parting shots as well.
Well, I think I'll just add that this mandate will definitely come from the people, as the NRM, our fourth pillar, is democracy, and very broad-based democracy, not the parochial democracy of
religion and
yes,
tribe.
Yes. This democracy that comes from the grassroots, from the resistance councils in the village, the democracy that is as wide to include youths, women, people with disabilities, all the broad-basedness of the NRM inspired democracy. And this very same democracy is what births these systems that we see, the structures we see, and that are put in place to fight corruption. So these are a reflection of the will of the people to fight corruption. And as I said, I believe that this scourge called corruption affects all of us. And I'll borrow the words of Mzee Yoweri Kaguta Museveni at his inauguration. He says bad governance affects all citizens, regardless of who they are. If there is a bad road, it won't affect only the NRM or only the Catholics, okay? As long as it is a bad road, it is a bad road for all of us. As long as it is a bad hospital, it is a bad hospital for all of us. And so we must all work together to build an accountable system that works for the best interests of all Ugandans. And I conclude by making a clarion call that if you believe in patriotism, the love of country, and that includes fighting corruption and everything that has to do with loving your country, if you believe in Pan-Africanism, the love of continent, the fighting of continent, that love is what takes us to Somalia. That love for continent is what takes us to Congo, to Central African Republic, okay? Is what is making us push for the African integration, is what is making us the leading country pushing for the East African community, that love for continent. If you believe in democracy, the rule of the people, the will of the people, if you believe in socio-economic transformation, Uganda's forward movement, then the NRM is your place.
Is the place to be.
Yes.
Interesting. Yes, Danita, your parting shots.
I think a lot of the conversation today has been about political will, about us having, you know, a sense of direction, about the structures. But I think one of the things that hasn't been addressed, but I think is of pertinence, something that would be the bedrock of all this, is an identity. Ugandans don't have a structured identity, something they can galvanize behind, something they can believe in, something they can advocate for, something they can believe is worth fighting for. I think that's the difference between us and the rest of the world. When Americans decided that they were going to resist the British hold over their country, they decided they were given a constitution, they were given an identity, that's something they could galvanize behind. Someone mentioned to me that when the NRM, and it was a very good point, it opened my eyes to something. When the NRM came into power, they built structures. We do not deny that. But what they failed to do was build an identity the people could, they failed to build the minds and souls of the people. And that is the one thing that we have to go back and do. Everyone has something they can get behind. They have, or maybe it would be tribal or religious or something, but no one has defined what it means to be a Ugandan. To be, someone will say, there are certain countries in the world that would say, oh, we are, you know, we are the most powerful country in the world, or our country is built on the bedrock of democracy. Ugandans don't have anything like that. Some will say that we have resisted monarchies, we have restructured our entire system. Ugandans don't have that, something each and every one of the people in this country can get behind or have gotten behind. When you have a resistance in this country, it is limited to a certain number of people. Someone will tell you that we freed you from the oppressive hold. It is not something Ugandans feel like they identify with. So I think as a people, we need to build something for Ugandans to believe in. We need to tell them, you are Ugandan, and this is what it means to be a Ugandan, because that is where political will comes from. That is where a belief that your country can be better comes from. Otherwise, all I know is that I happen to be born in Uganda, but I do not identify as a Ugandan in the truest form that is. Right now, that truest form does not exist. People will say the constitution is just a piece of paper right now. What does it mean to be a Ugandan? Someone should give us that identity, or we should give it to ourselves. That is going to be the bedrock. That is going to be the thing that reforms the systems we have. The things that make people decide to choose the right places to fall under. The thing that makes people decide that they're going to stand behind something. Otherwise, we're going to continue these conversations, but they're going to go nowhere, because no one knows what it truly means to be a Ugandan. They don't identify. They do not feel that. They don't feel that absolute attachment to our nation. So.
Interesting, deep words right there. Yes, Ndugu Laban.
Yeah, before we said, I made it clear that as also we continue to fight corruption, doing everything, the peaceful demonstration, we need institutions, building institutions that will make those engaged in corruption accountable. But also, as I conclude, as the young people, also we need to check ourselves, because majority of us are corrupt. You have heard the issues in the National Youth Council everywhere. People are corrupt, even young people are corrupt. You will be surprised that some of the people even who want others to be corrupt, all of them are also corrupt. So we need, as a generation, as also we hold our elders, also those who are in the system, to be accountable to us. It is also to make sure that we are also clean, because it doesn't give a good example. If I'm corrupt, I'm also now fighting those who are corrupt. doesn't give sense. But also I want to encourage the young people to read, because it doesn't make sense to go download. You cannot even draft a petition challenging that maybe this financial, this minister was given this. How was the money used? Read. We need to read the procurement processes. Where were they? Because we lose a lot of money through the procurement process. You find, for example, a motor vehicle which was supposed to be bought at 50 million, people go, connive with the suppliers, the tenants, even the amount not to reflect the value of that. And that is how we are losing money. So we need to read, follow the budget processes, follow whatever is given. Information that is how we can be able to challenge. Otherwise, you'll be surprised to find someone is saying corruption, but he cannot mention where is the corrupted tendencies.
Wow, very interesting. Of course, I can only thank you for spending the time to be on the Youth Show and giving our viewers a lovely and detailed conversation. From the PLU, thank you, Ivan Agaba. From the National Resistance Movement, thank you, Roy Rugumayo. From the citizens and Civic, and the activists and those who are there to speak very loud. And of course from the National Youth Council and the ANT, Kato, laban. Thank you so much for your time. To the viewers, it's always a pleasure having you every single Wednesday. Well, those who are corrupt, we are not proud of you. We don't want to associate with you. But at least the Ugandans are making us very proud. And those are the ones at the Olympics bringing us medals. And of course, congratulations to Cheptegei, congratulations to Chemutai, congratulations to Orogot, who won the 200 meters race, men's race yesterday, and all those who are, at the Olympics. We are cheering you on from back in Uganda. Carry high our flag and make us proud. Until next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.